Hello, welcome to Fantasy Football News for Week 8. I'm your host, League Co-Commissioner and Rebel Scum Manager Eric. With me today is my League Co-Commissioner and Stars and Stripes Manager Mike. Welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thanks, Eric. I'm very happy to be here.
All right. So I guess we'll jump straight into it. A lot of great action this week. A lot of stuff to get to. So let's go in. Our first matchup this week was Washington Fantasy versus Any Given Sunday. Washington Fantasy was 3-5, or is now 3-5, and is on a 1-week win streak with their win this week. Yeah, right. Beating up a little bit on Casey there. And Casey's had some rough luck.
Up and down weeks.
Definitely. I mean, from that first week where he was the high scorer with, what was it, like 180 something or 179?
170 something, yeah.
Yeah, and now to be kind of hitting the hard luck. And we'll get a little bit into Casey's lineup a little later in one of everybody's favorite segments. But that leaves Casey or Corey with the 1-week win streak, and he's 4th in the North Division, your division.
The best division, you mean?
Well, settle down. And then we've got Any Given Sunday, Casey's team at 4-4 on a 2-week losing streak now, and 2nd in the South Division.
That's your division.
Yeah, the best division, like I said earlier. Like you should have said, but you were clearly just saying wrong things. Take a look at the top performers there for Washington Fantasy.
Yeah, Austin Eckler had a nice game, getting 21.4 points. Aaron Rodgers had 19.66, and really it was a subpar game for him. And then Melvin Gordon, despite the fumble at the end of the game, ended up with 17.7 points.
Yeah, definitely. And on the Any Given Sunday side, Cooper Kupp still doing great with the Rams, 21.5 points. The decision to go with Teddy Bridgewater and sit Dak, I mean, obviously he has to sit Dak Prescott because he wasn't playing.
Yeah.
But to go with Teddy Bridgewater, like I said, we'll get to that in a little bit. But still, Teddy Bridgewater was 14.62 points, the second highest performer on that team, and then Darrell Williams. So Washington Fantasy ends up winning this one, 112.21 to 92.72, as Any Given Sunday actually posted this week's lowest score.
Quite a fall for him.
Yeah, definitely. Washington Fantasy will then take on next week in Week 9 your team, Stars and Stripes.
I'd like to wish Corey good luck, but I don't really mean it.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that at all. And then Any Given Sunday. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Any Given Sunday will visit the surging Team Marty.
Yeah, Team Marty. And we'll talk a little bit when we get to that game. That brings us to our second matchup this week, Team Scott versus the Generic Football Team. At the beginning of the season, Randy, the owner for Generic Football Team, had talked about going all in on Washington Football Team players.
As he should have.
Right. It seemed like a great choice. And even with the name Generic Football Team, right, and Washington Football Team, doesn't seem like it's worked out for him. We've got Team Scott now after winning this week, 118.2 to 95.
Let's correct that, actually. Team Scott lost this week.
Oh, you're right. Generic Football Team actually wins this one, 118.2 to 95.36. That puts Team Scott at 4-4 and on a 1-week losing streak, and 3rd in the North Division. She still has been. She's the team that actually ended my lossless streak, if you will. She's the first team that gained be my loss, and we'll talk more about my matchup and your matchup this week at the end of the segment. But anything stand out there to you?
Well, I don't know how Generic Football Team did it, because Helen was kind of a hot team and comes in, and Randy was the losingest team in the whole league. And, he pulls off with Stafford getting 30 points and Godwin getting 24.5, and Boston Scott at another 18, really just, put it to her.
Yeah, most definitely. And Team Scott had a decent performance out of Joe Burrow with 26.26 points. Deebo Samuel and Alvin Kamara both posted fairly good runs, especially Alvin Kamara, I think, having to pick up a little extra workload with Saints quarterback
Jameis going down.
Yeah. And speaking of Jameis, he was my backup option. I have Kyler, and he's not on bye until week 12, so I've got time to make a move there.
Trevor Simeon's available, though.
Well, there you go. Ooh, what about Cooper Rush? How about that guy?
Probably only that's one week wonder there.
So what do we got in week 9?
Looks like Team Scott will take on hard luck, almost like a Brian type of character, right?
Yeah.
Bad like Brian.
Yeah, a little bit.
Sandlot turf burns. I want to say bum so bad. And generic football team will take on another kind of a hard luck team, Wu-Tang Cash, who's lost 3 of their last 4 games.
They have it, but they started out the season very strong and were 3-0 to start, and that was interesting. As they were doing that, though, they posted, I think, the first week a very high score, and slowly declined. Kept posting lower and lower scores, but winning those first 3 weeks. And
I'll have to check my fantasy football for dummies, but I think that's the wrong.
It seems like it is the wrong strategy, but everybody does it different, right?
True.
That's what makes the league great. That leaves a generic football team at 2-6 on their 1-week winning streak and 5th in the South Division. And like I said earlier, Team Scott's got at 4-4 on a 1-week losing streak and 3rd in the North Division. Moving on from that game, our next matchup is the hard to say Sandlot Turf Burns versus Team Marty. Now, Team Marty has had some hard luck in the league this week. Just not necessarily, having the best outcomes from any of her players.
She's had a tough go for sure.
Definitely. But it seems like she's kind of turning that around a little bit as she's on a 2-week winning streak now. Still 4th in the South Division at 3-5. But this week for her, AJ Brown with 28.5 points, Michael Carter 27.7 points, and
what
Adam
a bold
Thielen,
move,
right?
Michael Carter,
Yeah,
rookie for the Jets. He plays for the Jets.
Right. Speaking of the Jets, what a great game they had.
A great game.
My buddy actually, they had that one quarter or that one touchdown or pass that was ruled incomplete, and then the very next play they got the touchdown. It was both were reviewed. My buddy, who's a huge Jets fan, texted me. He's like, after that first one, I'm giving up. I hate football. I'm done with football forever. And I texted him back right after the next play. I'm like, but they got the touchdown on the next play. And he's like, oh, they did? That might be the fastest never watching football again ever.
Another thing about Team Marty is that she also started another New York Giants running back, Devontae Booker, who also scored 15. So surprisingly great production from the New York football teams.
Which isn't something you can say every week.
It's not something you ever say every week.
So Team Marty wins this one, 151.12 to 111.1, and Sandlot Turf Burns lose yet again to the high score as Team Marty improved 36.33 points over last week's score to post the highest score in the league this week.
The funny thing is Mike would have beat 5 other teams.
Yeah, that
he just didn't have to play them this week.
Yeah, he just happened to not be playing 5 other teams this week. He was playing this one, and that's been Mike's curse this whole season. Like you said, I think I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. It was most of his games.
I think it was 5 of 6, or now 6 of 7.
Yeah, 6 of 7 for him playing the highest score.
So Team Scott next week should be the first or highest scoring team.
Yeah, that's a bet we can make, right? That will move out. Well, what did we have over on the Sandlot? Did we have any standout performances over there?
Tannehill did okay. He'll have to really pick it up with Derrick Henry now out.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt you as well.
It's gonna hurt me pretty badly. Yeah, DK Metcalf had a really nice game.
He did.
I think he beat a former Seahawk on a couple touchdowns.
That was good to watch.
That was very nice to watch.
That was very good.
Cordell Patterson continues his astonishing ascent from being a nothing player for several years to all of a sudden being a star.
Yeah, and he wasn't even drafted in our league this year.
Probably any league.
No, he was a late pickup by the Turf Burns, I want to say in week 1 or 2, and has continued to impress.
Probably one of the best pickups all year.
Probably. I would go ahead and use that moniker. All right, our next matchup that we totally didn't forget about, and we aren't splicing this in at all, is Team Deathringer versus Wu-Tang Cash.
Well, yeah, Eric, Team Deathringer continued their hot streak, winning their 4th game in a row, defeating Wu-Tang Chang by over 20 points.
Oh.
Team owner Jalila Nick started the season 1-3 before going on this current hot streak of winning 4 in a row now.
Yep.
During the last 4 games, the Death Rangers, as I like to call them, have averaged over 138 points per game. And during the 3 early season losses, they averaged only 108. So they've really upped their game a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if I mentioned this earlier or not, but her 2 quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Tom Brady, both averaged 32 points.
A
game. So tough choice, right?
Yep.
Who do I start? Well, next week it'll be Josh Allen because Tom Brady's on bye.
Yeah.
All the running backs, I think I mentioned earlier, average more than 16 points a game. I got to say, though, this is not a team anybody wants to play right now.
And I get to.
You play them next week.
Yeah,
coming off
coming off of 2 losses, I get to go up against what is right now the hottest team in the league.
Yeah, so they're 5-3 and second place in tough division, which is the North.
Yeah.
I do have a small 2-game lead over them. I played them in 3 weeks though, so
Oh,
I'm in the same boat you are, my friend.
yeah, there we go.
Take it
So,
easy on us, Jalila and Nick.
and moving on, we'll move on to our weekly $5 contest results. Our week 8
Before you
contest.
start,
Uh-huh.
I didn't win, everybody. Spoiler alert.
Our week 8 contest was highest scoring single bench player. Tom Brady scored 35.7 points while sitting on Team Deathridge's bench, while Josh Allen got the nod at starter for them. Congratulations to Jalila and Nick on their win. Also, remember that there was an additional $5 bounty available for any team that could unseat the weekly juggernaut that is my illustrious co-host Mike. Team Deathridger was qualified and did win the additional $5 bounty this week. No additional bounty will be offered for next week's contest, which will be most interceptions thrown by a starting quarterback.
Which I do not want to win.
This one may be close, so the tiebreaker on this will be the quarterback with the lower overall score. Good luck, everyone.
Except me.
Up next, in honor of the holiday that just passed, it's Frank, the Halloweenie.
Hot dog, it's week 8. Hot dog, your team ain't doing great. Hot dog, you need to make better moves. Hot dog, hot diggity dog.
Welcome. I am Frank, the Halloweenie, and we're going to talk about who is a fantasy football wiener. This is Buster Douglas. Team Scott started Calvin Ridley, who was a game time scratch, while Mike Evans sat on the bench. No effect really on the outcome of her game, but points are points. And as we discuss later, points will be important moving into the playoffs. Stars and Stripes, tight end, Mola Lee Cox scored a phenomenal 0.0 points while Darren Waller was on bye. The obvious choice for Mike here was to pick up Pat Freiermuth from the Steelers. Mike was a fantasy football wiener. Any given Sunday started Cortland Sutton in the flex over Amari Cooper. Couple that with Dak being out and choosing Teddy Bridgewater over almost every other competent starter, including Cooper Rush, Dak's actual replacement, or even Mike White of the Jets, and Casey could have won that game. Casey is a fantasy football wiener. And now, Mike's game of the week.
Mike's game. It's Mike's game. Mike's game of the week. It's Mike's game. Mike's game. Mike's game of the week. Mike's game of the week. Mike's game. Mike's game of the week. Mike's game. It's Mike's game. Mike's game of the week. It's Mike's game of the week. Mike's game of the week. It's Mike's game. It's Mike's game. Mike's game of the week. It's Mike's game. Mike's game of the week. It's Mike's game. Mike's game. Game of Mike's game. It's Mike's game. Mike's game. Mike's game of Mike's game. It's Mike's game of the week. Game of Mike's game. It's Mike's game of the week. Mike's game of the week. Yeah.
The game of the week this week was Stars and Stripes versus Rebel Scum. So
2 of the better teams in the league, I'd say.
probably, I mean, we're each sitting first in our division going into this game. I was a little mixed because of the way I got beat last week. It was a bad beat for me last week. It was rough.
Yeah, it was.
But I also had a ton of people on bye, and
Yeah.
I kind of expected that was going to catch up with
Week
me.
6 was tough for a lot of teams.
Yeah, it was. There were 6 overall teams on bye, right?
Yeah.
So a rough one. This one, both of us each came into it with just one loss. I was 6-1. You were 6-1. Both of us leading our divisions. You had all of your players done on Sunday.
Correct. I was done.
You were done with 105.42 on Sunday.
Gigantic 21.46 point lead.
Yeah, 21.46 point lead. And all I had left was Tyreek Hill.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, right. Only one of the great Chiefs receivers of all time, right? Now, notably though, Mahomes last week had possibly one of his worst performances.
I don't think it was possible. I think it was his worst performance of
his worst.
career.
And so there was a lot of people wondering if he could come back this
It's been a
week.
tough year for him.
It definitely
a lot
has.
of turnovers.
Definitely has. And And I think you look to rebound against a team like the Chiefs, right? Like
Yeah.
that's
Like
a
the Giants.
yeah, or like the Giants. You
Yeah.
hope to go in and really stick it to them.
This should be a blowout.
Yeah, it should be by all accounts. However, it didn't turn out that way.
You know?
The first quarter or so, it looked like Tyreek was going to get
I was toast.
yeah. I mean, he surged to like 18 or 17 or 18 points right in the first half there.
Yeah, I think he had almost 17 at the end of the first half.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. And then they just kept not throwing it to Tyreek.
Yes, they had Frank Gore's grandson, Derek
Yeah.
Gore.
Yeah, right. So what it comes down to is Tyreek Hill for me needed 21.46 points for me to win.
To
and
tie.
to tie, 4-7 to win. He got me 21.4. So
With a lot of time left.
yeah, with plenty
It
of
was
time.
middle of the fourth quarter, and you were within that 0.06.
Yeah, and every time, like you said, he went into motion or anything, it's like, all right, it's going to number 10 this
And they
time.
give it to
All he
him.
needed was a yard.
Or a catch. A catch
Yeah.
from -4 yards. He wins.
So Rebel Scum ends up losing this one, crazy fashion, just right down to it. 6/100ths of a point, which is the closest score.
Close game
this
I've
week.
ever been involved in.
Oh, okay.
Ever.
Well, there you go. Yeah, 6/100ths is. I mean, that's
Not very much.
yeah. And to be fair, there could be a stat correction
We're hoping not.
still applied. Well, I mean, we're hoping yes.
No.
But Stars and Stripes wins this one, 105.42 to 105.36. And who do we have coming up in the next week?
Well, I take on, as we mentioned earlier, I take on Corey's team, the vaunted Washington Fantasy team. While you're going to take on the hottest team in the league, Team Death Rager.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. They're on a 4-week win streak right now, and
Yeah.
that's going to be a hard match for me. I don't think I have a lot of players on bye, but it's definitely going to be a rough matchup, and hopefully I can get Kyler Murray back on track,
Yeah.
and some of those other players to really pick up some of that slack.
Well, here's something to make your day. With either one of her quarterbacks, who both average about 32 points, her 3 running backs all average more than 16. She already has 80 points before the game starts almost every week.
Right? That's crazy. She got really. I mean, normally Tom Brady isn't a huge first, fantasy quarterback pick. He doesn't put up the gaudy numbers. He just is a reliable.
He was that 40-year-old MVP.
Yeah, right. He's really shooting for it, and to have the problem of whether or not to start Josh Allen
Yeah.
or Tom Brady must
Yeah.
be a rough one.
Yeah, I don't know how you can sleep at night.
Right. So that will do it. Do you have anything else you wanted to go over there?
I did not. It was a fun week. It was a frantic Monday Night Football for me.
Most definitely was. Yeah, I was watching that one. Just like, come on,
Held
get
my
in the
breath
ball.
more than a few times.
So for week 9, as a reminder, there are 4 teams on bye: the Detroit Lions, the Seattle Seahawks,
Our Seattle Seahawks.
there you go, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Washington Football Team. So check your rosters and adjust your lineups accordingly.
Yeah, that's really important. We've had more than a few people play on buys this year. Another thing is, you've got to check your lineups in the morning because we've had some people sit out.
Yeah, we definitely had some.
I think you'll touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I will. Some healthy scratches, or whatever, and you really got to get in there and look at your lineups. Usually, those reports are released an hour before game time.
About 90 minutes.
Yeah, 90 minutes to an hour before game time, and you can go in. A lot of times, right on the ESPN app, there's a player updates.
Yep,
That'll
absolutely.
let you know if anybody on your roster is.
If it has an O, get him out of your lineup.
Yeah, there you go. And that really can make a difference. It maybe won't make a difference in that game right there that day, but if you look later on down the line at playoff seeding, that stuff points for and points against can come down to who gets in or
That's
who
a
doesn't get
tiebreaker.
in. Yeah, exactly. So make sure you're adjusting those lineups. And I think that will do it this week for the Fantasy Football News. As always, I'm Eric.
And I'm Mike, and thank you for having me.
No, you always welcome. And just remember, at Fantasy Football News, we're better than you. Well, I mean, come on.